Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Storm Surge Halftime Report. Welcome in, Stormtroopers. Of course, Kyle Nash is doing the game here with BP. And I think you said it just before we went on the air here. Very interesting first half of football, to say the least, my man. But before you go too much into that, I got to do one thing and one thing alone. We're going to talk about quarterbacks. We're going to talk about receivers. We're going to talk about a lot of things. But I want to get it out of the way to talk about Keyshawn Banks. This dude has been absolutely amazing tonight. And while the defense has had moments of errors, he comes out the gate with the first sack of the evening, just doing amazing stuff. And then I remember one drive in particular, BP, where not only does he draw the holding penalty to push them back, 2 plays later, he bats down a pass, playing on the other side of the line. God bless that dude being that. This defense relying so much on him tonight. It just makes me very excited.
The first thing you got to do is you got to wipe the sweat off your brow. And I just caught Anthony Becht with Jake Butt from Fox going in. He's like, they're trying to kill me, is basically what his defense is saying. They got to get off the field. They have got to get off the field.
Yeah, big plays making a problem there. I think there's one in particular, the out and up that Mike Abraham gave up. Like, buddy, it's 3rd and deep. He's not going to take the out route there. What are you thinking? But, I think that's the only real true head scratcher. Obviously, some stuff, the high tempo offense late had some stuff to do to him. But go ahead, BB. I've been talking too much.
You're good, man. There's a lot to digest, in this first half. And you look at it statistically, Orlando held the ball longer, 17 minutes, 3 seconds, 5 drives, but it was one in particular, the scoring drive they got the touchdown on. That was the best drive of the game. Jack Plummer. Did you see the play where he absolutely did a looky look, pulled the ball and ran with it? That's the first time we've seen him do that this season. So Plummer showing some feet, a couple of chunk plays on that drive. That was the best Orlando offensive drive of the year.
Certainly the most complete, right? Because it didn't have just some hero play down the field for something big.
No.
Dump, recovering from certain things. And I'll use the word for you so you don't have to embarrass yourself as a homer. Dare I say Mahomesian to complete things. The way they came up the middle on that touchdown pass, BP, and Jack just finds a way to go full disco and stay alive right there to find Chris Rowland.
Beautiful. Give the man a steak, serve it medium well. I mean, because that was how cooked the defense was on that drive. That was excellent. And then we go into the famine part of the drive. How in the world could you get all the way down to the opposing 9-yard line and then a penalty and then a sack? And, so it's just back and forth. So those are the things that we've got to have cleaned up going into this third quarter, because I believe Louisville deferred. So they'll start. Great stop by the defense, though.
Yep.
Listen, can't say enough about the Storm defense. They are absolutely locked in, keeping everything going. Tough sledding on that opening drive with Lance missing the short field goal. I mean, the guy can boom it from halfway across town, but anything inside of 30 yards, he's been missing lately. So that's some inconsistency they got to work on. Finally get a touchdown in the red zone early in a game, very much important. One touchdown in 3 attempts. But the story of the game for me right now is that bend don't break defense, and they got to stop bending so much, because, Jason Bean has thrown a couple of dimes and gotten a couple of chunk plays, and those are going to start adding up after a while. Lucky Jackson's made a couple of calls, threw a couple of catches, threw a trick play in there too. Holy crap.
Yeah.
That was well designed and well executed. So Louisville's hanging around in this game. They've passed for 185 yards. So despite getting to Bean, and they've shaken him up a little bit too, his ankle is taped.
Yeah.
So he's a little hobbled, but Bean is getting outside of the pocket and making some good plays when he needs to. But Jason Bean is doing the Jason Bean thing that he's done so far all season, and he's been horribly inconsistent, made some terrible reads, throwing well in advance of his offense, being ready. He's just really not letting the play develop long enough for his receivers to turn around. They should have scored a touchdown on that last drive to end the half. So, still got some things to work on if you're Louisville for sure. And Orlando needs to be attuned to that, because if he gets settled down, or if Rodgers comes in the game and settles them down, it's going to be interesting to see if the Orlando defense can, keep bending. They got to stiffen up, man. It's just not looking good. But another stat line for the Orlando Storm: rushing yards.
Yes.
28 in this half given up defensively by the Storm. That's 3.1 a carry. And again, no touchdowns through 6 quarters of play against Louisville.
I think we're up to 16 drives, 17 drives, somewhere in that neighborhood.
They flashed a graphic of 100, and I think it's 138 minutes roundabout since Louisville has scored a touchdown. So Orlando defense keeping it in. They've only given up the 2 field goals. So far, so good, but they got to stiffen up, and they've really got to get out of those third down situations because Bean has beaten them a couple of times. Lucky Jackson's been open. Benny Snell running a little better, but again, talk about that front seven for the Storm defense, man. Holy crap. As soon as he got the sack, my first word was Keyshawn. the man just animal in the backfield. I'm happy with the defense so far, Kyle, but the offense has got to step it up, and they have some, one more complete drive or two in this half, clean up some of the dirt. I really want to see that touchdown drive be more consistent for Orlando. We can't have too many expectations on them yet, but I think they need to isolate that and go, hey, that's what we're capable of. Let's get it.
I think all that's a solid take there. Let's give Louisville receivers some credit too. There's been some snags in the game of a higher degree of difficulty. A lot of it being, listen, both defenses are doing their job. I'll give them doing their job. I'll give them that credit. The Louisville front responsible for the downfall. I should say the downfall, but the low light of the Orlando defense offense. That drive you mentioned where they were back on the 9 and in the back on their own, like 30-ish. That's tough. I get that. But credit to the Louisville defense for doing their thing. But the Louisville receiving core has made some catches, even kind of keeping Bean alive a little bit. And I'm not even going to go throw too much shade. I know Bean is known for throwing the occasional errant pass, but there's a lot of reasons to throw errant passes when this crew is chasing you the way they have. Keyshawn, it's a thing. What do you want to see in the second half to make it work right there, BP?
I didn't see a whole lot of consistent running out of Orlando. They need to establish a run game, maybe get some of that pressure off right now. The initial strategy looked to be getting Plummer out of the pocket, and Plummer has done the opposite. He's gotten out of the pocket and been successful, like the touchdown drive, some chunk plays on that one. So that has got to change. They've got to slow the rush down because Louisville is now rushing around the edge. They're getting that penetration. The line is not holding the pocket very well. So they need to isolate that part of the game. Make sure you got Plummer a clean pocket to throw in. Or give him the opportunity to run out of it, because when the edges are collapsing like that, there's no possible way. Plummer doesn't have the mobility to do that unless he steps up. And, so I need to see a little bit more run to kind of balance that off a little bit. And then, utilize that passing ability that he's had. Again, I just loved that second drive. Need to see more of that. Chris Rowland got shaken up on a drive, so I wonder if his status will change throughout the game. Looked like he was just dinged up a little bit. I think he should be back into the game, but he's been super effective tonight. We have not seen Elijah Badger though. So that's another X factor that we have to see tonight in the second half.
Hamler getting busy though. He's gotten some significant catches.
Hamler seems KJ Hamler seems to be the connection right now. We thought it would be Plummer and Badger, but Hamler seems to be the guy he's going to a little more with a dash of Rowland. So, but get all your skill guys into the game. We said it on the podcast this week. He has a bad habit of being captain checkdown, but sometimes captain checkdown, wins that game. So, let's see that happen. But they need to establish the run. Get Corbin involved and start playing a little smash mouth football. Slow that defense down a little bit. And then again, on the defensive side of the ball, it's time to stop bending, y'all. You've proven your flexibility at this point. You need to keep him out of the red zone. Also, want to go back to another 1,000 IQ play that Plummer did. How about earlier in the second quarter, just throwing the ball away and not crossing the 50-yard line. Not crossing the 50-yard line to force the punt that Lucky Jackson muffed. And that could have been an easy turnover at that point. So another smart move, kind of using the rules to your advantage. Most people are like, but hey, if he crosses the 50, now you got to go for it on 4th and short, and you run the risk of turning the ball over at midfield. They got to play field position. Exactly. And, so that was a smart play by that. So still lots to unpack in this second half. I want to see, those things we mentioned. But other than that, it's a good ball game. It's nice and tight. and Louisville's been out of the end zone. They've gotten close.
Yeah, there's entirely too many times where the defense in obvious patching situations get too conservative, that prevent style, preventing you from making the stop. But, credit to Louisville for doing things with the fast pace and the no huddle there. I'm not taking any away from that. It's clearly when they were at their best, they need to look out for that as well. And the storm front, the O-line, no excuse to let in that much penetration on a three-man front. I don't care who you are. But beyond that, listen, there's been a lot of good. We talked about the bad. The game is far from over. And despite all that we have to say with the frustration, with what frustration there may be, BP, still up by a point, though. To your point, the Kings get the ball back. So, yeah, any final thoughts, my friend?
No, you got a 4-point lead right now. You got to maintain it. You got to keep them out of the end zone. Let them kick field goals all night. They can't keep up with you. Orlando does have that flash in the pan capability to score another touchdown or two in the second half. I'd like to see 3. I'd like to pad it a little bit. Let these guys, don't put your foot off the gas at this point. And I think Coach Becht is going to go back in there and clean some of that up. And, same thing on the defensive side. You want to keep the foot on the gas at this point. Definitely accelerate. But in the offense, we got to get that slow burn. So by the fourth quarter, you're up by 2 touchdowns and they're playing from behind. But be careful with that, because we did see that Bean, when he gets into he seems to be more comfortable in a tempo offense. And I think they may start utilizing that. I would be wary of it into the half. Watch for the hurry up offense, because he was moving pretty quickly and effectively when he was moving at higher speeds, which is probably something he's used to anyway.
He moves well. It kind of takes an edge rusher like Keyshawn Banks out of the rotation and truly directly challenges the DBs. 100% on that. By the way, I'm not sure if Lamar Jackson made it back into the game. He did get shaken up as well. But again, still stopping people from scoring touchdowns the way they are. We are griping, but still a great job by the Orlando Storm to assure that they have a lead despite all the mishaps, and a better second half could blow this game open, as Orlando fans would hope. So
absolutely. Come on, let's go Storm. Let's finish strong, and let's have something positive to talk about post game tonight. And hey, dude, our first live. Welcome in. We did it.
Yeah, man, it's awesome stuff. And we're going to be doing it again post game. Hopefully, to BB's point, it's a celebration rather than a therapy session. So with that in mind, stay here with the Storm Surge. For BP, this is Kyle Nash, the student of the game. And until post game, class dismissed.